Okay, what my role is, basically I have a twofold role. The role is to mobilise, equip and motivate Christians to actually speak the truth into the public square. To encourage people to do that. It can be scary, but we should not be ashamed. That's the theme of our conference, and Steve's been speaking about that this morning, and James as well. And my other part is to actually lobby MPs, to influence the influencers in our community, to be available to the media, to make comment on different issues. And as I said last night to a group of people, having been a member of Parliament, I know some of the journalists, and often what happens is when they have one side of the story, they kind of feel they've got to have a balancing thing, so they ring me and ask me for comment because they know I'm willing to give comment. So that's the two broad areas. Then the equipping, mobilising and motivating people. How do I do that? I find that easier than using a clicker. Oops, here we go. Okay. We have been running Momentum events. Hands up those who've been to a Momentum event. Hey, not too many of you. Great. Well, Momentum events are roughly 3-hour sessions that we do usually on a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon, where we work together. James is one of our presenters, myself, Family Voice Australia, Darryl Budge, and Australian Christians, and we talk about some of the, James on the gender issues and so on. We cover a range of things, bring people up to date, and also help to equip them so that they know what they're talking about and can speak into their local communities. And if any of you'd like one of those hosted in your church or in your region, get in touch with me because we are keen to do those. We've done some in regional areas, we've done in Geraldton, we've done one in Bunbury, and we've done quite a few in the metro area, but we're keen also to go into regional areas. And I'm available to speak to churches and to church events. And the other thing that we're doing is starting ACL action teams. I'll talk a little bit more about those later. In terms of actually mobilising people, the federal election, in case some of you didn't know, we had one a little while ago, and the outcome of that was quite exciting for all of us. But when we had the election coming up, I said to Martin Iles, I said, there's one MP that I want to make sure stays in Parliament, and that's Andrew Hastie. And I said, let's put all our efforts in to, yeah, great guy, Andrew, and let's put our efforts into there. And roughly 100 volunteers were mobilised from our supporter base to letterbox 3 successive flyers into letterboxes a week apart in specially selected areas. And you might wonder, well, how big a difference does that make? Well, the good news is that Andrew Hastie was the one who had the biggest swing towards him. If I can get this thing to move, yeah. A 10% swing, that's the biggest swing that any MP had in Western Australia in the federal election. And it just goes to show that as a grassroots movement, we can make a difference. One of the areas that we're working on is the whole issue of human sex trafficking. You may not be aware, but it is a significant issue right here in Perth. And we work in cooperation with Adopt Nordic WA. That's a group that's very focused on this issue. And Lisa Olsen will be talking to us a little bit later about the whole Nordic approach. So we'll deal with that later on. But one of the exciting things is that the lobbying has made a difference. I've had the opportunity to present to 3 different Liberal Party divisions on this and to their policy committee. And 12 months ago at the Liberal Party State Conference, they, with about a 2/3 majority, passed a motion that they wanted the parliamentary party to take that to the next state election as a policy position. There's a lot of other issues that we're dealing with. Time doesn't permit me to go into detail on those, but the surrogacy issue, late-term abortions, gender ideology in schools and in workplaces, the push by government to have exclusion zones around abortion houses, and also the needle exchange programs where they don't want anybody around, and the whole issue, of course, of physician-assisted suicide. We're also very much involved in pro-life things, and that's a picture of the rally that we held in May. The Coalition for Defence of Human Life runs that, and the ACL is one of the members of that coalition. And the exciting thing is that that's actually been growing. We had over 2,000 people there this year. And the exciting thing was that roughly 400 of that crowd were actually young people. So that really bodes well for the future. And the physician-assisted suicide, of course, is a very topical issue at the moment. And now I'm having trouble. I'm not sure where I need to point that, but no, it's not cooperating. Oh, it has. Okay. Oops, not sure what that's on. Oh, that's the young people. Right, that's the young people. Then go to the next one. Okay, the whole thing of life from conception to natural death, and at the moment the big issue, of course, is physician-assisted suicide. And the government had Parliament had the report that came down in September last year. The expert committee has reported in terms of the shape that legislation should take. The parliamentary committee basically recommended suicide on demand, and that's not an exaggeration. The expert committee has recommended something a little tighter than that, but they've certainly recommended less protections than what the Victorian legislation has. And so the legislation will be coming into Parliament probably towards the end of August. And we know from the numbers that it will pass the lower house. There's plenty of people there supporting that, but it's in the upper house where there is the opportunity to stop this legislation. At this point in time, it's going to go down to the wire, and so it's really important that we actually engage with our MLCs, the legislative councillors, to let them know what we are thinking and what our view is on those things. I'd just like to draw your attention to a public rally that's being held on Wednesday, September the 4th. There are some flyers on your tables about that. Kevin Dunn, who is the producer of the film Fatal Flaws, he's coming from Canada to be the keynote speaker, and there'll also be some events on that Wednesday night, and on Thursday we'll be screening the Fatal Flaws movie, the full-length documentary, and stay tuned for information on that. But it's a critical issue because if this legislation goes through, it actually change the whole view of human life in terms of the dignity of human life. It really is a critical issue, and if we don't win this, it'll be almost impossible to turn the clock back. So with this rally, it's lunchtime, and people say, oh, it's middle of the day, I've got to take a day off work. Hey, if you can take a roster day off or take an extended lunchtime, come along. The day before, Dying with Dignity will have their rally. We want to make sure that ours is at least twice the size. Every person is going to count. And we'd love to see 5,000 people there. That'll totally pack the place out. By having it at lunchtime, it's easy to get the media there because they're at Parliament anyway. Whereas if you have an evening one, the problem is that they've gone to bed by then and the paper's already being printed for the next day. Just quickly, the other thing that we're doing, ACL action teams. We're setting these up. We've got 3 up and going, and it's meeting sort of roughly monthly. Groups of 5 to 20 odd ACL supporters who really want to make a difference. You'll get an update on what's happening politically in the state and nationally. We do some training. It's no good just being an enthusiastic volunteer. You actually need to know what you're doing and how to do it well and how to be effective. And then we also do some action things, like might write a letter or do some role playing in terms of perhaps what you would do if you rang up a talkback radio station, or how to make an appointment with your MP, all that kind of thing. And then the last 15 minutes we spend in prayer. So if you'd like to be part of an ACL action team, there are clipboards over there where you can sign up for wanting to be part of an ACL action team. There's also clipboards, some who don't want to be part of an action team but want to be part of a prayer team. So you can also sign up for that. And if any of you don't get our ACL emails, you're also able to leave your updated email details. One of the challenges at ACL is to keep our database up to date. What I'd like to emphasise to all of you is that you can be an influencer. You can share the ACL Facebook posts, you can explore the ACL website. It's quite an easy website to get around. If you just go acl.org and then / say abortion, that will take you to the stuff that's on the website on abortion, or whatever word you put behind that takes you to those resources. And there's some really good material there that can be helpful for you. And when we ask you to sign petitions, it takes a second or two. You might think, well, what's one more difference will that make? Well, guess what? If 1,000 people say that, there's 1,000 less signatures on that petition. So it's really important that you pitch in and help us with those things. And be an influencer wherever God has placed you. The other thing is, don't be ashamed. Be active. We can have so much influence through our local newspapers, local FM stations, create opportunity, writing letters to the editor. And if your letter doesn't get printed, don't worry too much about it, because the fact that you've written a letter may well help somebody else's letter to get printed. The editor takes, so if a dozen letters come in, he may take 2 of those letters to print. So the fact you've written one that doesn't get printed, it wasn't a waste of energy or effort. And visiting MPs with others, circulating petitions, talkback radio, they're all means that we can use to have influence. But the thing that I'd really like to impress upon all of you as State Director is that we have the truth of God's Word. Amen. And the world needs to hear that truth. And so often it's just easier to kind of, it's not the right time, as the people in Haggai said. It's not the right time yet. But we need to learn to speak up and to be bold. And I was talking to Jim Wallace a little while. Jim was the founder of ACL, SAS man, commander. He said to me, Peter, the problem with Christians is we always take the defensive position. And he said, if you want to win a war, if you always only take defensive position, you can never win a war. Because sometimes when you have a defensive position, you will get pushed back. But if you then just defend again, you just keep going backwards. But you actually need to go forward and attack. We actually need to retake some of the ground that we've lost. And we've lost an awful lot of ground in the last few decades. And the final slide that I've got there is commit to praying and working. I'm not sure where I got this quote from, but I love it. It says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Now, that was, I think, from a secular kind of person. But if we couch that work in prayer, and we know that we're actually on God's side, and we know that Christ has won the victory, hey, we're on the winning team. So let's be bold, let's be brave, let's get out there and let's make a difference, knowing that it's not just your opinion or my opinion, but we need to learn to speak the truth into the public square. Thank you very much.